Hello, everybody. I am Sandra Lee, and this is my friend Leslie Martinez. We are having a really interesting conversation today. I do human design, which is a chart based on your birth date that tells you a lot about who you are. Leslie does astrology, which is also using a chart based on your birth date that tells you a lot about who you are. And I met Leslie because she was looking at having a summit that was bringing in a bunch of people and they were going to compare these two modalities. She kind of decided that was too much work and she wasn't going to do that right now. But she and I decided we wanted to explore it just in this little conversation because there are numerous people like me who do human design who really don't understand astrology. I have a hard time learning and understand astrology. And there are some people like Leslie who really love astrology and have a hard time relating to and understanding human design. This is such an interesting dynamic because it's a thing. It's not just her and me, but this is something that for some reason really happens out there in the world. Now, in my experience, I value and appreciate both sets of input. I know I have benefited from other people telling me about my astrology, and I find that they complement. So, Leslie and I are going to look at my chart, we're going to look at her chart, and we're both going to give differing information about the questions that we decided we wanted to discuss today. So, that's the fun we're going to have. You have anything you want to say, Leslie?
Yeah, no, super exciting. And yes, like you said, I think many people have a difficult time. Either you are an astrology person or you are a human design person. And so, when I was planning the summit, it was this idea of like, how can we explore both? Because I think both modalities have information about ourselves. And I wanted to have that conversation. So thank you so much for inviting me and saying, you know what, the summit didn't work, but can we still do this? Because I think a lot of people could benefit from hearing the type of information that they can find in their birth charts. And I'm excited to explore your question and show you what I found on your birth chart. And likewise, I'm super excited to see how you can answer my questions
Yep.
as it relates to human design.
So, go ahead and start.
Yeah. So your question to me was, and you know what? If you allow me, let me read the exact question from so that we're on the same page. So your question is, I want to work on my issue with having difficulty with procedures and standards recommended business practices. And so I went ahead and looked at your chart, and the first thing I told you was like, Sandra, I can't see how that's possible. You have three planets in the sign of Capricorn in the house of career, the 10th house of career. So I want you to look at your chart, Sandra. And if you see the 10th house, there's a strong concentration of planets there. You have Venus, which is values and something that you actually desire. So you actually desire to have the structure. You actually desire that. Even if you're finding it difficult, you want it. Does this relate at all or no? And if it's not relating, I do not know why astrology does that. But
I think I
um,
should have more structure because that's what other people have told me.
not because you desire it yourself.
It feels like there's something wrong with me that I have a hard time incorporating structure into my business.
Got it. Okay, so here's what I see. Uranus, which is the planet that is kind of like a revolutionary. So Uranus basically wants to revolt, wants to it rebel. It's like the rebellious sign of the zodiac. It is making an aspect to your Mercury, your Venus, and your Mars in Capricorn. So it does change the flavor of how those planets are interacting in Capricorn. So that could be the biggest challenge. That could be why you're rebelling against that. So there's a rebellion that's happening. So I couldn't see it because I was like, I have to ask her about this because I haven't experienced this before, this strong transformation through that how Uranus is interacting with them. Like I personally haven't had that. So I was like, let's first explore the idea that you seem to want it, but then you're rebelling against it. So I'm wondering, like, how can you work with that energy of like not rebelling against it, knowing this about yourself and saying, okay, part of me wants to rebel against the status quo, rebel against certain structure. Is there something in you that, or from memory that you can remember that made you think, I want to rebel against these things. These things do not work with me. Because, as a healer, you can be a healer and a nurturer and also have the structure. And it doesn't have to be done by you. So, you don't have to rebel against it. Even if this is in your charts, it doesn't mean that this is how life has to be forever. This information tells us at the time of my birth, this is sort of like the energy that I came into the world with. But then we learn and we go through experiences and we allow ourselves to go through those changes to be, to transform. And it doesn't mean that we cannot learn or acquire a new skill or delegate. Because if this is something that you don't want to do, instead of rebelling, it's more like, I don't want to do it. Can I let somebody else take this over for me? Because it's just not in me to want to do it. Can I delegate that?
Yeah. So this is an area where we get to look at the different information that comes from astrology, which is what Leslie's talking about, and from human design. So when I look at my human design, it makes complete sense to me of where my resistance comes from. So the strongest themes in my human design chart are perfectionism and being in control. So for me, not knowing how to do these things and being afraid I'm going to do them wrong is a big part of where the resistance comes from. And so this lifelong issue with struggling with being in control or needing control or not doing things if I don't know how to do them, I don't like doing things I'm not good at. And so having to be able to make things better, because that's a big part of my human design chart, always making things better, but struggling with, perfectionism.
I love that you said that.
Yeah. and not being able to get out of my own way with that. So understanding this about my human design chart helped me have a lot easier time when, with giving myself, problems like, why do I do this? What's wrong with me? Understanding my human design helped me. I was like, oh, okay, this is where the struggle comes from.
Amazing. And I love that you said, I struggle with perfectionism. So Uranus, which is the one making the aspect to your Mercury, and I'm sorry, I'm looking down, but I'm looking at your birth chart.
That's okay.
Mercury, Mars, and Venus. Uranus is it's in the sign of Virgo. Virgo is all about perfectionism. My husband is a Virgo. I know the energy very well. So Virgo is all about details, detail oriented. Things have to be done to perfection. My husband sets up the house because things have to be done a certain way. And I'm just so grateful that I have somebody to do it because I'm the complete opposite of him, complete opposite. So, the house gets to be organized because of this level of detail that he brings to the table. And so I'm constantly telling my husband, just so that, so I can relate it to your energy, is permission to, yes, you need it. So acknowledge the need for perfection, but also give yourself a lot of grace. And, otherwise, you're never going to feel like you're good enough or that you're doing enough. Also, I want to point out that Virgo is all about service, being of service oriented. So sometimes wanting to be there for everyone all the time could play a role into your life, daily work life. So maybe overextending yourself to people. I don't know if this rings a bell, but that's some definitely something I see there. And I also see there, so this is all in alignment with the same house. So Virgo rules the sixth house, and it's not ruling your sixth house in this chart. Leo is, but it does kind of cut into it. And I think that energy does play a part to kind of like, in my opinion, like make that energy even bigger in the sense that you have Virgo in its house as well. Like it's interjecting Leo, but that I think both energies are at play in that house. And then to add more fire to it, you have Pluto. Pluto likes to transform everything it touches. Pluto is also a bit of a rebel, just like Uranus. But it's just the transformation. It's actually like the transformation that comes from going in and deep inside of you and changing those parts of you. So you do have the power to transform the way you look at your daily work and life, so that it's also benefiting your health and benefiting you personally. So you have that power. So that's what I see in terms of your struggle, and permission to delegate, permission to delegate that part that is just not in alignment, so that you could be the amazing healer that you are, that is also and teacher as well, that I see in your chart. Your north node, which is your north star, is in Cancer. So you're here to nurture and be a healer and to deal with emotions and to help people heal their emotions. There was one thing also that I saw, and it's your moon in Scorpio. You're here to transform people. You know, Scorpio it transforms things, like teeth. You're dealing with things that are, I would say, like in the obscure things. So think the topics that people are the topics that are taboo to many people. For you, they're not, and you know, you're not afraid to deal and touch on those things that are, you know, perhaps taboo or hidden or not, emotions that we go around displaying to people, but that we're all working through. And so you're here to do that work. Focus on that and delegate the other stuff if you can.
Yeah. So this is something that I love about both astrology and human design. So it's like, at first, Leslie wasn't sure how to address my question, my concern. When we're talking, the things that I say, then whoop, then there's a whole stream of insights that come. So it's like, that's what doing readings is like. Both astrology and human design. It's a living, like, occurrence where there's a back and forth. So it's like we both said things, and it's like, oh, yeah, all this stuff that comes up about that. And I can connect what I know with what she says. And so it's like talk about how it evolves. So it's like what you said about, you know, this being Uranus and a growth path, a transformation path. I have, you know, hired people basically to help me learn how to put these structures in place. So I'm getting better at it, and it's definitely a growth path.
Incredible. Amazing. Yeah.
And and like you said, you know, sometimes if I notice that perfectionism is stopping me, absolutely. I was like, okay, just do it anyway. Or find somebody else to help. So absolutely.
And I think what your audience should know is that you have an extreme need to be detail oriented. So you bring that into your work, because it is in your daily work and health. So with you, not only are they're not only will they feel nurtured and cared for, but also you bring the level of detail that is necessary to do the work that you do. You know, it's not just like, oh, la la la, and you actually are able to walk them through a process, because you care about the little details and you thought about everything before you actually made it into a practice. You know, before you actually decided, I'm good enough to do this, you carefully went through that process. So, you know, truly, like I haven't had your services, but I'm sure you're absolutely brilliant. You know, when it comes to the healing, your healing practice and how you transform people's lives, you know, because I can see that in your chart.
Thank you. So, some of the things that are different about astrology and human design. So, it's like Leslie was talking about houses and zodiac signs. That information is not in the human design chart. I'm going to access different information about centers and about type and strategy and that kind of thing that's not in astrology. So, for people who are really into learning and growing, both are beneficial. They really complement so nicely. So it's like I learned some things about myself. It's like, oh, that makes sense. So I appreciate that from Leslie. Okay, so you ready to look at your chart?
Excited, can't wait.
Okay, so what we were going to talk about for Leslie's chart is just, you know, her alignment with her business. And so I'm just going to tell you some general things that I pull out of her chart, and then we're going to do some of this back and forth again. So I know that the work that you do, first of all, is very intuitive. It's all intuitive, right? So it's like you have your human design chart, and up at the top of it, there are two centers. Okay, I'll show you mine. I don't have hers printed out. These up at the top, the head and the ajna. So for Leslie, those two centers are undefined or white. And the head center, the one up at the very top, has no gates attached to it. The gates are these colored lines that we have in the human design chart. Okay, so Leslie's head center has no gates attached to it, which means that you just receive all of this inspiration, all of this insight, all of this any information that their soul has to deliver to you.
Mm.
And sometimes, it might not be coming directly just from the chart. You might get other information about them and then go to the chart and look for information, confirmation from the chart, right?
That sounds pretty accurate, and I'm fairly new to reading charts and incorporating that into my coaching, but absolutely. There's an energy that's at play because the first thing I do is kind of write out a script about what I see. But as I mentioned to you, I'm like, I need to speak with you because I don't see how you don't have the structure. So absolutely. The moment you started talking to me, I'm like, I see it, And it's some people might see this as, well, she's telling you the information. No, she's not, because that Uranus could have been in a completely different part of the chart, but it's in complete indirect alignment to those planets. Is this a coincidence? I don't think so, because this could have been a completely empty house. And then I totally would have been like, okay, where is this coming from? And so, yeah, just sorry that I'm bringing it back to the birth chart. But yeah, all this to say that sounds absolutely true, that anytime I do a reading, it's a combination. It's, having a conversation and then going to the chart to confirm it. That's absolutely true.
Okay, so there's something else that I see in Leslie's chart that definitely relates to her work. So the will center is one of the triangular shaped centers on the chart. And Leslie has something I call a funnel effect on her will center. So connected to the will center is one gate. And this is the gate about shock and transformation.
Ooh,
So
tell me more.
I think of you as being like transformation agent. And people come to you wanting a shift, wanting transformation, wanting a change. And so through the work that you do, it makes sense that you're helping people to transform their lives, transform their understanding. Now, it also means that you might say things that are a little unexpected or shocking, and sometimes you might do that intentionally. Do you ever do that intentionally? Like,
Yes.
I'm going to say something
Yes.
that it's going to like
Absolutely.
rock their boat a little bit.
Absolutely. Especially me having a very corporate background, even doing this work is an act of that shocking effect. And so I've been shocking some of my colleagues with this, and they're like, what? And I'm like, have a reading and come check it out. And I mean, yeah, so absolutely. I do love doing it for both. And then sometimes unintentionally, I think people may misread me and maybe not read my full personality, because I guess what I would say is you either like me or you don't. And if you really like me, you're in my life forever. It could be that we spend 3 years without talking, we reconnect again, and it's almost like my best, like time didn't pass. And that's absolutely, I can relate to this. So
Yeah. So the planets where you have this gate 51, the gate that's on the will center, it's your unconscious sun. So that makes it one of the strongest energies in the chart. So it could be that, whatever it is you're doing, there's an aspect of transformation or the unexpected or doing things just in a way that's not quite the way everybody else does it, because there's this transformation energy to it. Yeah. Unexpected, right? So it's like, 100%. Again, even if it's not associated with work, it could be associated with anything. You just like say the little things that go boop. It just causes a little bit of surprise. Okay. And the other place where you have the gate 51 is Mercury. So it's like, a lot is through what you say or how you say it or the flavor of what you say. And so just to recognize that your words have that transformative value. And one of the channels in your chart is the most auditory channel, the 5734. So it's like just looking at your voice as being, one of the big vehicles through which the transformation occurs, not just in
Hmm.
work, but overall. So it's like, you have a 5-year-old. It's like, how do you use your voice with your child, with your family, just to recognize that there's transformative power available there.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because um, I do feel that I lack certain practicality. And yes, communication is one of my strengths, and also that intuition and emotions. And sometimes we take it for granted. We're like, well, the practicality is super important. At least, you with your structure as well. I'm sure you could relate. Um, we forget the value of the transformation that could happen from sometimes reading a book as well, and seeing an idea that is different, that can help you change your mindset. And recently, one of my clients said to me, one of the things that you always offer a, is you help me see things from a different lens, from a different point of view. And so what that does for people is allow them to break out of that cycle of, oh my God, I can't get, I'm stuck. And now suddenly you could see a different way of doing things, and breaking kind of like free from that cycle and exploring something new. So thank you. Yeah, I definitely relate, and I can relate that to some of the feedback that I've been getting from
And is
friends
that
and
it?
clients.
How does that show in your astrology chart?
Good question. In terms of the transformation, so most of my work, believe it or not, like even the language that I'm using, I'm actually, that's what I was trying to do, find my chart and see how I can make the relationship, because there is I do have strong energies surrounding transformation. I just need to find it. So even in my language, I use transformation often. It's actually like I've done training about that, and going deep and working on that, and then coming out the butterfly. Like I just today I posted on my book, Facebook, personal Facebook and group, about this idea of like, I love the word chrysalis. It sounds beautiful, but nobody knows what happens inside, and it's still pretty, it is something to the effect of like, it's not pretty, but it is still a beautiful world, or sort of speak, because that place of transformation, it's one that, it's not always painful. And that's one thing that I want to learn from you with your sound, is that you could navigate it in a different way, but as I know, it could be a painful process. So I'm so looking forward to seeing how other ways to heal or transform without the pain. In terms of transformation in my birth chart, so my personality, my Pluto, sorry, there it is. I knew it. Pluto rules transformation. Pluto is the planet that rules Scorpio. And Scorpio is all, again, as I mentioned before, I think with your reading, it's all about transformation, inner transformation, transformation of emotions. Basically, these are things that are taboo, or just really going in. There's three transformers as I see it in astrology. One of them is Pluto, the other one is Saturn, and the other one is Uranus. Uranus is the rebel, so it transforms things through rebellion. Saturn transforms the outer things, not the inner things. So it could be transformation through a challenge. So you go through a challenge and you transform your life because of this outer thing that happens. Pluto is an internal transformation, and Pluto is in my ascendant, and the ascendant could either be interpreted as your soul, but also, or your personality, how others perceive you. So I have Pluto sitting at 0 degree. Um, it's a 0 degree, but it's not right on my ascendant, but it's like conjunct my ascendant. So that does give me that transformative, transformation. Um, it's part of who I am. It's part of my personality. It's part of my soul.
Isn't that fun? Like
Very fun. I mean,
get,
crazy.
getting the different lenses, the different perspectives. So it's like being able to look at both types of charts for guidance on these individual issues adds tremendous depth.
I agree.
Tremendous depth.
I agree. it's also making a, I just want to make sure that I think it's squaring. Yeah, it is squaring my sun, which creates friction with my inner being. So, but it, again, it's that force that drives you to transform whether you like it or not. And it could create challenges in my life so transforming through challenges, but like internal, it's more like an internal wound that needs to be healed, which through my work, that's usually what I address. It's like, what are some of those wounds that need to be brought to the surface and then alchemized?
Yeah. So what Leslie is talking about right now is aspects.
Right.
Aspects between the planets in the chart. And this is something that, again, is not in human design. So it's like there are different types of information that are available for you, anyone out there, with the two types of readings, both based on where the planets were. And so there's a richness that's available with the opportunity to do both.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Is there anything else you want to say, Leslie?
No, that is it. I hope you guys got to enjoy the contrast between the two. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on and discuss, astrology with you and to do this mini, even though it's not the actual event that I wanted to put together, like we got to compare and contrast. And I think people get a flavor for it and how important it is to sort of get that information for yourself and get to know yourself so deeply that like now you're like, okay, I know I have this in my chart. I know this could be a potential challenge. What do I do with that information? Instead of like, oh, why does this always happen? And you don't seem to find the answer. And you're just like, but what do I do? And feeling stuck. Now you know, now you take action from that place of knowledge. And I think that's what Sandra does with her work. That's what I do with astrology as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
So associated with the video will be how you can connect with Leslie and how you connect with me. And thank you all for joining us for this exploration.
Yes, thank you. So you could join me. You could find me at intentionsmanifested.com. And when you sign up, you'll get my emails, which are mostly about transformation. I also have a Facebook group called Intentions Manifested by Leslie Martinez, which you can come in and we manifest our dreams and goals in
Yay!
there.
And you can reach me through miracleinspirations.com as my Facebook page. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra.